It all started on a quiet morning that should have felt ordinary, the kind where the sun rises gently and everyone in the neighborhood goes about their day without expecting anything unusual. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And I am curious where you're watching from. Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. But sometimes the moments that change people begin just like that. Calm on the outside, while something uneasy waits beneath the surface. That day, a young girl named Mia rolled her wheelchair toward the school courtyard with her service dog, Ranger, trotting faithfully by her side. Mia was used to being watched. Some kids looked at her with curiosity, some with sympathy, and a few with quiet admiration. But there were also the kids who looked at her for the wrong reasons. Kids who had grown up believing they could get away with anything just because of who their parents were. Everyone at school knew them: Tyler, Mason, and Chloe. They were the kind of rich kids who arrived in shiny cars and wore expensive clothes that made them stand out the moment they stepped on campus. Their confidence wasn't the natural kind. It was the kind that came from never being told no. They weren't bad all the time, but when they got bored, they looked for someone weaker to poke at. And on this particular morning, Mia just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ranger, her trained police service dog, walked close to her wheelchair like always. He wasn't just a helper. He was a protector, her steady presence, her best friend. He had been trained by officers who understood the value of calm, loyal strength. And for Mia, who had faced more challenges in her 12 years than some people face in a lifetime, Ranger was more than a dog. He was a reason she felt brave enough to come to school every day. As Mia moved across the courtyard, she kept her focus forward. She'd learned long ago that avoiding eye contact with certain people was safer. But even without looking up, she could sense something was off. There was a strange tension in the air, the kind that makes your stomach twist, even before you know why. The three kids were leaning against a wall near the entrance, laughing loudly at something none of them actually found funny. Their eyes followed Mia the moment she appeared, and in that shared glance between them, trouble was already decided. Mia didn't notice at first. She was busy talking softly to Ranger, telling him he'd been a good boy for helping her carry her backpack earlier. Ranger wagged his tail, completely unaware of the group, watching them with growing interest. It started small, like it always does. Just a comment thrown into the air, loud enough for Mia to hear, but quiet enough that they could pretend it wasn't about her. She tried to ignore it. Ranger stayed close, sensing her discomfort. The courtyard wasn't crowded yet, which meant fewer teachers around, fewer witnesses. And the kids who were there kept their distance. No one wanted to get involved when it came to Tyler and his friends. Mia kept moving, hoping they'd lose interest, but footsteps followed her. The voices got louder. Ranger let out a low, cautious sound. Not a growl, just a soft warning he used when Mia felt nervous. She gently touched his head and whispered for him to stay calm. She didn't want trouble. She never did. But trouble found her anyway. Tyler stepped in front of her wheelchair, blocking her path with a smirk that was practiced, confident, and careless. Mason circled behind her, while Chloe watched from the side, arms crossed, pretending she was only there to observe. Mia froze. She didn't want to show fear, but her heart was beating too fast. She knew Ranger was trained to stay grounded, to protect without aggression, but he also knew when she needed backup. "Were you rolling off to so fast?" Tyler asked, his tone pretending to be playful, even though everyone knew it wasn't. Before Mia could respond, Mason made a joke that didn't even make sense, but they all laughed anyway. For them, the fun wasn't in the words. It was in the reaction they expected from her. Ranger positioned himself slightly in front of Mia, alert but controlled. He didn't bark. He didn't bare his teeth. His stance said enough. Don't get closer. But Tyler didn't care. Kids like him thought rules were for other people. Mia tried to steer her wheelchair around them, but Tyler moved again, blocking her way a second time. That's when Chloe noticed Ranger staring at them with sharp focus. Her expression shifted, not out of concern for Mia, but because she knew Ranger wasn't an ordinary pet. He wore an official service badge on his harness. And that meant messing with him wasn't just bullying. It was something much more serious. But instead of warning the others, she stayed quiet. Ranger gently nudged Mia's leg, a signal he used to ask if she needed help. She whispered that she was fine, though she didn't fully believe it. She wished someone, anyone, would walk by, a friend, a teacher, even a passerby. But the courtyard was too empty, and the 3 kids were too confident. Then things took a turn. Mason made a sudden movement toward Ranger, not something violent, but enough to startle both the dog and Mia. Ranger stepped back protectively, and Mia instinctively reached for his harness. Tyler laughed, acting like it was all harmless fun. But the moment Mason touched Ranger, even lightly, the atmosphere changed. This wasn't a joke anymore. Ranger knew it. Mia knew it. Even Chloe's smile faltered. But it wasn't until Tyler tried to shoo Ranger away with his foot, a careless, thoughtless motion, that everything shifted in an instant. Ranger didn't react aggressively. He simply moved back, lowering himself protectively beside Mia. But the act itself, even if it wasn't forceful, crossed a line that none of them understood fully. What they didn't expect was who had been watching from a distance. Just a few feet away, an officer had stepped onto campus, checking in for his scheduled visit. He hadn't planned to intervene in anything. He certainly hadn't expected to witness the last few seconds of what was happening. But when he saw the way Tyler's foot swung toward a trained police service dog, and the fear hidden in Mia's eyes, his expression hardened instantly. He took a step forward, then another, and before the rich kids even realized he was there, his voice cut through the courtyard like a cold breeze, sharp enough to stop every sound around them. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Everything went still. Tyler froze mid-smirk. Mason's face went pale. Chloe's arms slowly uncrossed. Mia's breath stayed trapped in her chest. And Ranger, loyal as ever, didn't move a muscle. The officer walked closer, eyes locked on the 3 kids, who suddenly didn't look so powerful anymore. His jaw was tight, his posture steady, and the badge on his uniform caught the morning light, as if reminding them exactly who they were dealing with. But what he said next, that was the moment everything changed. And none of them, Mia, the kids, or Ranger, knew what was coming next. The officer's footsteps echoed across the courtyard as he approached, each one slow and controlled, but firm enough to make the 3 kids stand straighter. The morning air felt heavier now, as if the whole school was suddenly holding its breath. Mia's hand tightened on Ranger's harness, and though the dog didn't move, she could feel the calm strength in his body. He was waiting on her, letting her decide how to feel. But right now, she wasn't sure of anything. The officer stopped a few feet away, his eyes moving from Mia to the 3 kids, and then down to Ranger. There was something steady in his expression, something that made it clear he understood more than what he saw in the last few seconds. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't angry in the loud, dramatic way teachers sometimes try to be. His voice was low, almost quiet, but that only made his words sharper. "Step back. All of you." Tyler swallowed hard and took a small step away from Mia's wheelchair. Mason followed without a second thought. Chloe pretended she was only adjusting her stance, but even she moved a little. None of them dared speak. Their confidence from a moment ago cracked like thin ice. The officer didn't look at them long. Instead, he turned his attention to Mia, softening his tone. "Are you all right?" Mia nodded slowly, though she wasn't totally sure. Her voice felt trapped somewhere deep in her throat, and she didn't trust it to come out steady yet. Ranger pressed lightly against her side, reminding her that she wasn't alone. That helped. A little. But before the officer could say anything more, the school bell rang, shrill, loud, and almost out of place in the heavy moment. Students began flooding into the courtyard, their conversations mixing into a noisy wave. The sudden crowd made everything feel different. The tension didn't vanish, but it hid beneath the surface now, quietly following everyone even as a routine of school tried to cover it up. The officer straightened, clearly realizing he couldn't handle everything right here, right now. Not with dozens of kids walking around. Not without causing a scene that would spread through the school in minutes. He spoke quietly, leaning slightly toward Mia so only she could hear. "I'll talk to you later. Ranger's doing his job. Just stay close to him." She nodded again, this time more sure. The way he said it, calm, reassuring, like he already knew her and Ranger, it eased from the panic that had been clinging to her chest. Then he stepped back and addressed Tyler, Mason, and Chloe with a look that made all three shrink a little. "We'll talk soon, too." None of the kids dared ask what he meant. He walked off toward the main office, and as soon as he disappeared inside the building, the noise of student chatter seemed to rush back into Mia's ears. She took a deep breath and tried to steady herself, moving her wheelchair toward the hallway. Ranger followed at her side, close enough that his shoulder brushed gently against her wheel. But even as she rolled forward, she could feel eyes on her, not just Tyler and his friends. The whole courtyard had seen the end of what happened, and Mia hated that feeling. She didn't want to be the center of anything. She didn't want whispers behind her back or pitying looks from kids who didn't even know her name. Ranger nudged her hand with his nose, grounding her again. Mia gave him a small smile. "I'm okay," she whispered, even if she still wasn't fully convinced. Behind her, Tyler, Mason, and Chloe stood huddled together. They were talking quietly, too quietly for anyone else to hear. Their faces weren't angry. They were worried, nervous, confused. But there was something else there, too, something unsettled. Tyler kept glancing toward the office doors, as if expecting the officer to reappear at any moment. The school day officially started, but nothing felt normal. By the time Mia reached her classroom, her mind kept replaying the moment Tyler stepped in front of her, the way Mason's hand reached toward Ranger, the shift in the air when the officer appeared. It all unfolded again and again in her memory, like a loop she couldn't stop. Her teacher greeted her warmly, asking if she needed help getting settled, but Mia shook her head. She just wanted to sit with Ranger close by and breathe for a moment. She tried to focus on the lesson, but her thoughts kept drifting. It wasn't just about what happened. It was the way the officer reacted, the way he looked at Ranger with recognition, like he already knew the dog, and that confused her. Ranger wasn't a regular service dog. He had a history, one Mia didn't always talk about. He'd been trained by a special unit, the kind that didn't just train animals to assist people, but also to work alongside officers in real situations. Ranger had been paired with Mia after something that happened years ago, something her family rarely mentioned, something only a few officers knew details about. So why did this particular officer look at Ranger like he'd seen him before? While the class went on, Mia gently brushed her fingers through Ranger's fur, trying to calm the thoughts that kept piling up. Ranger leaned against her leg, reminding her of his steady presence. He didn't care about rumors or rich kids or the growing pressure outside the classroom door. He cared about her, and that was enough for him. But the school wasn't done with her. During break, Mia noticed kids whispering in quiet corners. Some glanced toward Tyler and his friends, who stood apart from everyone else. None of them looked relaxed. Chloe kept checking her phone. Mason kept shifting from foot to foot like he was expecting something bad to happen. And Tyler, usually the loudest of them, didn't say much at all. Mia moved to a shaded bench with Ranger. She didn't want to think about them anymore, but ignoring them felt impossible. It wasn't about the confrontation itself. Kids said rude things all the time, but today felt different. The way the officer reacted made it clear that whatever happened wasn't being taken lightly. She wasn't sure what that meant for her, or for them. Ranger lifted his head suddenly, ears perked. Mia followed his gaze and spotted someone walking toward her from across the yard. Her heart skipped for a second when she realized who it was. The same officer from earlier. His expression wasn't upset. It wasn't stern, but it wasn't casual either. He looked like someone carrying a story he hadn't decided whether to share. He stopped in front of her, hands on his belt, voice kin to them before. "Mia, right?" She nodded. "I think we need to talk," he said. "About Ranger, about this morning, and something else." Mia swallowed hard. She wasn't sure she liked the sound of that. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. The officer paused, just long enough for her stomach to twist again. Ranger didn't move, but his attention sharpened, his eyes fixed on the officer with calm alertness. "There's something you should know," the officer said softly, "and I think Ranger already does." Mia felt a chill run down her spine, because the way he said it, it didn't sound like he was talking about the bullying anymore. It sounded like there was something bigger, something that had been waiting beneath the surface long, before today. And Mia wasn't sure she wanted to know what it was. The officer didn't sit down right away. He stood near the bench, as if measuring the moment, making sure Mia was ready before saying too much. Ranger watched him closely, tail still, body steady. It almost felt like the officer and Ranger were communicating silently, in a way Mia couldn't fully understand. After a few seconds, he finally spoke. "I'm Officer Daniels," he said gently. "I've met Ranger before, not recently, but long enough ago that I'd know him anywhere." Mia blinked. That didn't make sense. Ranger had been with her for nearly 2 years, and before that he'd been in a specialized training unit. She knew he'd worked with officers during that time, but no one had ever mentioned a specific name. Her parents didn't talk much about Ranger's past either. They always said the important thing was that he was with her now, but Officer Daniels seemed certain, and that unsettled her even more. Mia nodded slowly. "Did you train him?" "Not directly," he said, "but I was around during some of his early sessions. Ranger was always special. Not just smart, aware. He read people better than most adults could. That's why they paired him with someone who needed more than just a helper. He didn't say it like she was weak. He said it like Ranger was strong." Mia lowered her eyes to Ranger, who gave her a soft nudge before focusing on the officer again. She could feel the tension in the air growing thicker. It wasn't the same kind of tension she felt with Tyler and his friends. This was different. Quieter, heavier, like shadows stretching across something she didn't yet understand. "What does that have to do with this morning?" Mia asked. Officer Daniels hesitated again. "Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But what I saw today, it didn't look random. Those kids didn't just stumble into trouble. Their actions felt intentional, or at least encouraged." Mia frowned. Encouraged by who? He didn't answer, not directly. Instead, he glanced around, scanning the courtyard as if checking to make sure no one was listening. The break yard was full of students now, but most were too busy laughing, eating snacks, or scrolling on their phones to notice them. Still, the officer lowered his voice. "Look, Mia, Ranger wasn't assigned to just anyone. He was matched with someone who needed protection for reasons beyond the usual. And I'm starting to think someone might know that." Her pulse jumped. She didn't understand. Her life wasn't exciting. She wasn't part of anything dangerous. She went to school, did her therapy sessions, spent time with her parents, and tried to live as normally as she could. There was nothing in her world that needed this kind of warning. Unless he was talking about something from before she remembered. Something her parents didn't talk about anymore. "Why would anyone care about me?" she whispered. Officer Daniels opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a sudden shout broke through the yard. Students turned their heads. Someone was running, one of the hall monitors, waving for help. A teacher rushed over, and a small crowd began forming. Officer Daniels straightened instantly, instincts kicking in. He looked at Mia with an apologetic seriousness. "Stay here. Don't move. And keep Ranger close." Then he jogged toward the commotion. Ranger didn't like it. He leaned forward slightly, ears up, body alert, as if wanting to follow the officer. But Mia held his harness gently, grounding him. "It's okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. The crowd started murmuring. Words floated through the air, unclear at first, until a few repeated enough times for Mia to piece them together. "Fight near the back gate. Someone pushed Tyler. Teacher said it wasn't an accident." Her heart tightened. Tyler? The same Tyler who had blocked her path earlier? Why would he be at the back gate? And why a fight? Ranger lowered his head, staying close to her knee. He didn't take his eyes off the direction Officer Daniels had run. Minutes passed before the crowd thinned a little. No one had full details, only rumors bouncing around. Some said Tyler slipped. Others said someone shoved him on purpose. A few claimed he'd been arguing with Mason earlier. Confusion clouded everything, and the teachers didn't confirm anything. But Mia noticed something strange. Chloe was nowhere to be seen. She had been with Tyler and Mason earlier, but now she wasn't standing with the students, wasn't near the teachers, wasn't anywhere in sight. Mason showed up eventually, pale and jumpy, pacing back and forth like he couldn't stay still. He kept checking his phone, his face tightening each time he looked at the screen. Something was happening, something more than schoolyard drama. And for the first time since the morning started, the fear Mia felt wasn't because of the kids who bothered her. It was because something bigger was moving in the background, something she couldn't see, but Ranger clearly sensed. Ranger rested his chin on her knee, his eyes focused and unblinking. He wasn't scared. He was preparing. Mia didn't know what he was preparing for. When the bell rang again, students moved inside, but the whispers followed them like thin threads of worry. Ranger walked with her, closer than before, his shoulder brushing the wheel with every turn. Mia's mind spun with questions she couldn't shape into full thoughts yet. Why had Tyler been at the back gate? Where was Chloe? Why did Officer Daniels seem to know more than he'd said? And what did he mean by someone might know? The classroom felt colder now. Mia tried to focus on the lesson, but her teacher's words blurred into background noise. Ranger stayed at her side, shifting every time a hallway noise echoed too sharply. As the minutes passed, the unease didn't fade. It grew. She sensed it in Mason, too. He couldn't sit still, kept tapping his foot, kept glancing at the door. When he accidentally met Mia's eyes, he looked away so fast it was almost suspicious. The school day continued, but no one really cared about the assignments or the whiteboard or the half-hearted jokes the teacher made. There was a cloud hanging over everyone, something silent, something waiting. And somewhere in the school, Mia knew Officer Daniels was talking to Principal, maybe even calling someone, maybe even looking for Chloe. Mia didn't know what was coming next, but she could feel it, and Ranger could feel it even more. The rest of the day moved in slow, uneasy waves, as if the entire school had fallen under a quiet cloud that no one wanted to acknowledge. Mia could feel it with every passing period. The teachers were distracted. Students whispered more than they listened. Even the hallways sounded different. Lighter footsteps, softer voices. Everyone watching everyone else without wanting to seem like they were. Ranger stayed close, closer than ever. Every time a classroom door opened or a locker slammed, he lifted his head in alert. His calm usually steadied Mia, but today it only made her more aware that he sensed something she still couldn't see clearly. By lunchtime, the mystery surrounding Tyler at the back gate had grown into a dozen versions. Some kids said he fainted. Others claimed he'd been pushed by someone outside the school. A few even whispered that Chloe had been with him and ran off because she didn't want to get in trouble. But nothing was confirmed. No one had answers. And Officer Daniels had not come back to talk to Mia. That made her stomach twist the most. Mia rolled her wheelchair toward the far corner of the lunch area, the quiet spot she preferred. Ranger settled beside her feet, scanning the crowd with steady eyes. She was halfway through her sandwich when she noticed Mason sitting alone across the courtyard. His shoulders were hunched, and he kept staring at his phone like he was waiting for a message he didn't want to receive. Mia didn't care much about him personally, but something about the way he acted felt off. Not guilty, not sad, more like scared, really scared. She tried to focus on eating, but her appetite faded. The morning had already taken too much out of her, and now the uncertainty layered over everything like a fog. She glanced down at Ranger, who lifted his head and gently nudged her knee as if reminding her he was still there. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too." A few minutes later, she heard footsteps approaching, not fast, not loud, but purposeful. She looked up and saw Officer Daniels walking her way. His expression was serious, more serious than before, and when she looked into his eyes, she could tell this wasn't a casual talk. He stopped beside her table. "Mia," he said quietly, "I need you to come with me for a moment." Her chest tightened. "Is something wrong?" He didn't answer right away, not directly. "You and Ranger need to be somewhere safe for a bit." Somewhere safe. Those words weren't about the school bullies anymore. Ranger stood up immediately, muscles tense, body ready. He stayed pressed to Mia's side as she gathered her things with shaky hands and followed the officer. Students stared as she passed, their whispers chasing her down the walkway. But this time she didn't care about the attention. Something far bigger was happening. Officer Daniels led her toward a smaller building near the administrative offices, a place most students rarely went. On the way, he spoke in a low voice that felt urgent but controlled. There's been more happening today than you know. Tyler didn't just slip. And Chloe, she left campus without permission. Her parents haven't been able to reach her. Mia's heart skipped. Why would she leave? He shook his head. We're working on that. They reached a side entrance. The officer unlocked the door and guided Mia inside. It wasn't a scary room, just a quiet conference space with a long table and a window facing a secure courtyard. Still, being brought here made everything feel more real, more dangerous. Ranger sat close, leaning against her leg in a protective stance. Officer Daniels closed the door behind them, lowering his voice further. I need you to trust me for a little while, all right? Mia nodded, though fear curled around her ribs. Okay, but I don't understand what's happening. He took a slow breath. Chloe wasn't just standing there this morning. She recorded everything. Mia's eyes widened. She hadn't seen a phone, but Chloe was good at pretending not to be involved, only watching. Recording made sense. But why would that matter now? Officer Daniels continued. She sent the video to someone outside the school, someone who shouldn't have it. And after she did, she disappeared. But why would she send it to anyone? Mia asked. That's what we're trying to figure out. He paced a short distance, running a hand over his jaw like he was choosing every word carefully. This morning wasn't just bullying, Mia. I think those kids were told to bother you. Mia felt her breath catch in her throat. Told by who? He met her gaze. His answer came slow, heavy. We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they know Ranger. And they know why he was assigned to you. The room seemed to tilt. Mia gripped her chair for support. But my parents said it was just for assistance. They said he would help me feel more confident. That's part of it, Daniel said softly. But there was something else. Something from before you moved to this town. Her chest tightened. Her parents rarely talk about life before the move. Every time she asked, they gently brushed it off, saying things were different then and not worth worrying about now. Ranger moved closer, chest pressed against her leg, sensing her distress. Daniels knelt down beside Ranger, not touching him, but speaking like they shared an understanding. You remember, don't you, boy? Ranger didn't react physically, but something in his eyes sharpened, like he recognized the weight of the moment. Daniels stood again. Someone has been watching. Not you, Ranger. And when they saw him on that recording, they realized exactly where he ended up. Mia felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Why would anyone care about Ranger now? He's just my service dog. He's more than that, the officer said quietly. And whoever is looking for him doesn't care about your safety. That's why we need to act before they get closer. A chill slid down Mia's spine. Closer? You mean someone is coming here? She whispered. Daniels glanced toward the window, scanning the courtyard with steady eyes. We're not sure, but based on what we learned from Tyler and Mason, he paused, the tension thickening. There's a chance someone has already been near the school. Mia felt the room grow colder. Ranger stood, body rigid now, his attention locked on the door as if he heard something no one else did. Daniels reached for his radio instinctively, pressing a button but saying nothing yet. Then, a sharp crack sounded from somewhere outside, not loud enough to be dangerous, but loud enough to freeze everyone in place. Daniels moved to the window fast, his hand hovering near his holster, not drawing, but ready. Mia held her breath. Ranger stood protectively in front of her, muscles tight, gaze fixed. Daniel's voice dropped to barely a whisper. They're here. The sound echoed just long enough to freeze Mia in place. Ranger's body stiffened even more, his ears pricked forward, his stance shifting to fully shield her. Officer Daniels didn't move from the window at first. He was studying the outside, trying to match the noise with something harmless, something normal. But his jaw tightened just slightly, and Mia could tell he wasn't convinced it was nothing. She waited for him to tell her it was okay, that the sound was just a dropped book or a locker slamming. But the officer didn't say any of that. Instead, he stepped back from the window and positioned himself between the door and Mia, as if he wasn't taking any chances. He raised his radio slowly. Front office, he said quietly, Report on any movement near the side courtyard. There was static for a few seconds, too many seconds, before someone responded. We're checking cameras now. Please hold. Mia felt the tension coil tighter inside her chest. Ranger stayed in front of her, unmoving, but she could feel the steady vibration of a low rumble in his throat. Not a growl, just a warning. Something he only did when he sensed a real threat. Officer Daniels glanced at him. If Ranger's on alert, we take this seriously. Mia swallowed hard. Is someone actually here? Someone looking for Ranger? Daniels didn't answer right away. He kept staring at the door as if he expected it to open at any moment. His silence said more than words could. Mia felt the air shift around them. Heavier, colder, like the hallway outside had suddenly grown quieter on purpose. Before he could respond, the radio crackled again. Officer Daniels. We checked the exterior cameras. There was movement near the side gate. Someone approached and then stepped out of range. Not a student. We're trying to zoom in. Mia's breath caught. Not a student. Daniels lowered the radio slowly. That explains the noise, he said more to himself than to her. But then he turned toward her, his expression calm but firm. I need you to stay completely still. Whatever happens next, do not move unless I tell you to. Mia nodded, though her hands were shaking slightly. Ranger pressed aside against her wheelchair, bracing her instinctively. His eyes never left the door. The next moment stretched on painfully, but it wasn't silent anymore. Mia could hear something faint outside. Footsteps. Slow, careful, trying not to draw attention. Not running. Not panicked. Someone who knew exactly where they were going. Daniels tensed. He didn't reach for anything, didn't panic, but he shifted his weight just enough to move into a defensive stance. Not aggressive, just ready. But then, another sound cut through the tension, sharp and unexpected. A phone ringing. Not inside the room. Outside. Close. Daniel stiffened. That's a student ringtone, he whispered. Mia blinked. A student? Before she could make sense of it, a familiar voice echoed faintly from the hallway. Shaky, anxious, like someone speaking into their phone while walking too fast. I'm here, okay? Just meet me. I'll explain everything. I didn't know it would go this far. It was Chloe. Mia's stomach flipped. Chloe hadn't left school. She'd been hiding. Officer Daniels took a cautious step toward the door, but he didn't open it. He pressed his ear closer, listening as Chloe's voice moved nearer. She brought the dog, didn't she? You told me just to get video. Chloe whispered harshly. I didn't know someone else was watching. Someone else. Someone she wasn't talking to on the phone. Mia's breathing picked up. Ranger turned his head toward the door again, tense but controlled. Chloe's footsteps got even closer, right outside the room now. She was talking in a desperate whisper. Okay, yes, I know. I shouldn't have sent the video. But you said they wouldn't track it. You said they didn't care anymore. A pause. No, I didn't tell Tyler or Mason. They're already freaking out. If they find out who you are... Another pause. Then Chloe's voice dropped, barely audible. I think he knows Ranger. Officer Daniels' expression sharpened instantly. He took a small step back, positioning himself so he wasn't directly in front of the door, but could move fast if needed. Mia's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to ask questions, wanted to know who Chloe was talking to and why everything felt like it was unraveling. But the fear pinned her in place. Ranger sensed it and placed his head gently against her knee, grounding her even now. Chloe exhaled shakily outside the door. Fine, I'll meet you near the backfield. But you better tell me everything when this is over. Her footsteps started moving away. Daniels didn't wait. He moved quickly but silently to the door and cracked it open just enough to see down the hallway. He watched Chloe disappear around the corner, then closed the door again and turned to Mia, his face filled with a mix of urgency and something like regret. She wasn't running from us, he said quietly. She was meeting someone who convinced her to get involved. Mia's heart thudded. Who? That's the second problem, he said. We don't know, but they know Ranger, and they know you didn't just end up with him by chance. Mia's hands tightened on her wheels. Then what do we do? Daniels didn't answer immediately. He paced a short distance, thinking fast, weighing options in his head. Then he turned back to her with a decision. We're moving you to a safer room, one Chloe doesn't know about, and I'm going to find out who she's meeting before they disappear again. Ranger barked once, short, low, almost like agreement. Daniels nodded at him. Good. Stay close. But before they could move, the radio buzzed again, louder this time, filled with tension. Officer Daniels, urgent update. We got a partial zoom on the person near the gate. It's not apparent. Not staff. We think. Static swallowed the rest of the sentence. Mia stared at the radio, fear knotting her stomach. Daniels raised it again. Say again. More static. Then, finally, we think they were looking for the girl in the wheelchair. Mia froze. Not Ranger. Not Chloe. Not Tyler. Her. Ranger stepped in front of her fully now, body rigid, eyes locked on the door. Officer Daniels moved closer to Mia, voice calm but deadly serious. This is no longer about bullying, he said. This is connected to something much older, something you were never supposed to face again. Another noise echoed down the hallway, soft but growing closer. Footsteps, not hurried, not uncertain. Someone approaching with purpose. Ranger lowered into a protective stance. Daniels reached for the door handle, bracing himself. Mia, he whispered, stay behind Ranger. She did. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Then, a slow, deliberate knock. The moment Officer Daniels pushed open the heavy school doors, the entire hallway seemed to freeze. His voice had already echoed across the courtyard, firm but controlled. And even from outside, everyone could feel something serious was about to happen. Maya clutched the armrest of her wheelchair, her breath shaky, while Titan stayed pressed against her side, alert but calm. The rich kids, Evan, Chase, and Lila, stood near the lockers, trying to pretend they weren't nervous, but the shaky glances they exchanged gave them away. They had never expected things to go this far, and now the officer's presence made everything real in a way they couldn't easily escape. Officer Daniels didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His quiet footsteps said enough. The tension grew heavier with each step until he finally stopped in front of them. He looked down at Titan first, as if silently checking the dog for signs of distress, then slowly lifted his gaze toward Evan. For the first time since the whole situation started, Evan didn't have a smirk or a careless shrug. He looked like a kid who realized he wasn't as untouchable as he thought. But just as the officer opened his mouth to speak, the school principal rushed in, looking flustered and unusually pale. She whispered something urgently to the officer, and his expression tightened. The hallway went completely silent. Titan let out a low sound, not a growl, just a soft alert, the kind he used when he sensed something about to unfold. Officer Daniels straightened up and asked all four of them, Maya included, to follow him to the main office. The walk felt endless. Students peeked from classroom doorways, murmuring as they passed. Some had seen what happened earlier. Others had only heard rumors of the girl in the wheelchair, the service dog, and those rich kids who pushed it too far. The school's energy was buzzing with curiosity, and Maya felt like the entire world was suddenly watching her. Inside the office, the door clicked shut behind them. But instead of questioning the kids right away, the officer glanced at the principal, waiting. She hesitated, adjusting her glasses with shaky hands. Then she revealed something none of them expected. That morning, long before Maya arrived, the school had received a call from a parent. Someone claiming their child had been pressured into joining a group plan arranged by Evan and his friends. The parents said the kids were being encouraged to target Titan, not because they disliked Maya, but because they wanted to prove they were fearless around a police-trained dog. It wasn't just bullying. It was a dare that spread through a group chat, and now screenshots had made their way to the principal. Maya felt her stomach twist. This wasn't just an impulsive moment or misunderstanding. It had been planned. Titan shifted, sensing her discomfort, placing his head gently on her lap, grounding her with the familiar weight of his presence. Evan quickly tried to defend himself, insisting it was a joke, something that got blown out of proportion. Chase backed him up, saying they didn't mean for anything to actually happen. But Lila stayed quiet, her hands trembling slightly. The officer noticed. Before anyone could speak again, there was a sudden knock at the door. A teacher stepped in carrying a tablet. She looked uncomfortable, as if she didn't want to be part of any of this. But she handed the tablet to the principal and whispered, "You should see this. It just got forwarded to us." The principal pressed play. A video, recorded earlier that afternoon, not showing the incident itself, but something else that made the room shift. It showed Lila walking away from the group before anything happened. She had tried to convince Evan and Chase to leave Maya alone. She even warned them Titan was a working dog and that messing with him, men or not, could have serious consequences. But they laughed at her, telling her she was being dramatic. In the video, she clearly said she didn't want to be part of it. Then she left the shot and the recording cut off. Officer Daniels turned to Lila. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because they wouldn't listen. And I didn't want to get in trouble, too." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, the room felt painfully human. No villains, no heroes, just kids making choices, some better than others. The tension spiked again when the officer revealed something else. Titan wasn't just any police dog. He had been assigned to Maya not only for support, but because Maya was part of a witness family in a small ongoing case. Nothing dangerous, but sensitive enough that Titan had been specially placed with her until things settled. That meant any interference with him, any at all, was legally more serious than the kids realized. Evan's face drained to color. Chase stared at the floor. And Maya, hearing this spoken aloud, suddenly felt exposed in a way she wasn't prepared for. But the twist didn't end there. Officer Daniels leaned forward and said, "There's something else we need to address." He pulled out a small envelope from his pocket. This was found in the courtyard after the incident. "Maya, it has your name on it." Her eyebrows furrowed. She took the envelope with shaky hand. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a folded piece of paper with a short message written in rushed, uneven handwriting. "Don't trust everyone who acts like they're helping you." Maya's heart skipped. The handwriting wasn't familiar, and the message didn't match anything that happened earlier. Officer Daniels asked if she recognized it, but she shook her head. He exchanged a glance with the principal, one that suggested there might be another layer to this whole situation, something they weren't fully seeing yet. Evan spoke up suddenly. His voice was unsteady. "We didn't write that. We don't even talk like that." And from the look on his face, it didn't seem like he was lying. For the first time, the officer seemed genuinely concerned, not just about the bullying, not just about Titan, but about whatever that note meant. The room felt colder. Titan lifted his head again, ears perked, eyes focused on the envelope as if sensing something more than the humans could. Then Officer Daniels said quietly, "This changes things." Maya felt the weight of every unsaid possibility hanging in the air. And just when it seemed like the climax had reached its peak, the office phone rang sharply, cutting through the silence. The principal answered, listened for a moment, and her face shifted from confusion to shock. She looked up at the room and said, "Officer, they need you outside." Now, someone just showed up asking about Maya. The officer's eyes narrowed. Titan rose instantly, posture alert. And in that charged moment, when everyone expected answers, everything only grew more uncertain. The moment the principal said someone was outside asking for Maya, Officer Daniels didn't waste a second. He opened the office door and motioned for Maya to stay inside with Titan. The dog obeyed, but his body stayed tense. Ready? Maya felt her heart thudding in her chest. After everything that had happened, the bullying, the video, the mysterious note, this new twist felt like even more than she could take. Evan, Chase, and Lila stood frozen, unsure whether they were still in trouble or suddenly part of something much bigger than their own mistakes. Outside, voices echoed down the hallway. The principal stepped out as well, leaving the kids alone for a moment. The air in the office felt thick, like every breath was being weighed. Maya slowly unfolded the note again, staring at the messy handwriting. The message didn't make sense. Who would warn her not to trust people helping her? And why now, in the middle of all this chaos? Titan nudged her hand gently, reminding her she wasn't alone, even if the situation felt too big for someone her age to handle. A minute later, Officer Daniels returned, and the look on his face softened the tension just slightly. "Maya," he said, keeping his voice calm. "It's okay. You can come outside. It's nothing dangerous." His tone alone unwound some of the fear inside her. She took a slow breath and rolled forward, Titan walking beside her with steady steps. When they reached the front of the school, Maya saw a woman standing under the shade of a tree near the entrance. She looked familiar. Kind eyes, warm expression, and a fold of her hands. It took Maya a second to recognize her. It was Mrs. Carter, one of the volunteers from the therapy group where Maya had first been paired with Titan months ago. Mrs. Carter walked toward her with a gentle smile. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," she said softly. "I heard what happened and wanted to make sure you were all right." She explained she'd been dropping off paperwork at a nearby office when she got a message from one of the staff. She came straight to check on Maya, assuming she might need support with Titan or just someone familiar to talk to. The relief that washed over Maya was so strong her shoulders relaxed instantly. The tension that had been building all day finally loosened. But before she could say anything, Officer Daniels cleared his throat and asked the question everyone was thinking. "Did you leave this note?" he asked, holding it up. She blinked, confused. "Note? No, I haven't written anything." The officer studied her for a moment, then nodded. He seemed to believe her. And Maya did too. Mrs. Carter wasn't the type to send anonymous warnings. She always said things directly and kindly. Even though the scare was over, the mysterious note still hung in Maya's mind, but now it didn't feel threatening. More like a puzzle she didn't need to solve right away. Officer Daniels tucked it away as evidence, but he made it clear there was no immediate danger to her. "Whatever this is, we'll look into it. But right now you're safe," he said. With that reassurance, they all returned to the office to finish the conversation that had been interrupted. Evan, Chase, and Lila looked up as Maya came in, and something had changed in their expressions. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with guilt, maybe even regret. Officer Daniels didn't lecture them with anger. Instead, he talked about responsibility, how small choices can turn into big consequences, especially when it involves someone who depends on a service dog for safety and support. He talked about respect, not just for Maya, but for Titan, who wasn't just a pet, but a trained partner who helped her navigate daily life. The boys finally admitted they didn't understand how serious things were. Evan, usually loud and unbothered, looked down when he said, we didn't really think at all." Chase nodded, his shoulders slumped. Lila wiped her eyes quietly, still shaken by the video that revealed she tried to stop them. Instead of punishing them right away, the principal suggested something different. The school had a community program where students could volunteer with special needs groups, therapy animals, or younger kids who needed tutoring. She believed it wasn't enough for Evan, Chase, and Lila to apologize. They needed to understand the impact of their actions by doing something meaningful. Maya didn't say much while they talked. She only spoke when the principal asked if she felt safe continuing school and whether she wanted to press any formal complaints. Maya looked at the three kids, who had turned her day upside down. They looked nothing like the confident, careless bullies from earlier. They looked like teenagers who realized they crossed a line they didn't even see. "I don't want anyone to get in trouble, just to get in trouble," Maya said softly. "I just want it to stop." And in that moment, something shifted in the room. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Something everyone could grow from. Over the next week, the school atmosphere changed. Word spread quickly that Titan was a working service dog, and that the school would be enforcing clearer rules to protect him and any students like Maya. Evan and Chase started their volunteer hours with the therapy center, and to everyone's surprise, they didn't complain. And Lila, who had tried to prevent everything from the start, grew closer to Maya. They talked during lunch, shared stories, and slowly formed a soft, unexpected friendship. One afternoon, Evan approached Maya outside near the benches where it all started. Titan watched him carefully but didn't react. Evan cleared his throat and said, "I know sorry doesn't fix everything, but I mean it. I'm really sorry. For all of it." His voice was different, quieter, more honest. Maya nodded. "Thank you," she said, and for the first time, she meant it. As the days passed, the mysterious note faded away from everyone's attention. Officer Daniels later discovered it had likely come from another student, a younger one. who'd seen Evan's group earlier whispering and laughing, and misunderstood the situation completely. The kid had panicked and tried to warn Maya anonymously, thinking he was helping. It wasn't meant to scare her at all. Life settled again. Titan remained his steady, loyal self, guiding Maya where she needed to go, always calm, always watchful. And Maya learned something she didn't expect, that even when situations seem dark or confusing, people can surprise you. Some will step up in the right moment, like Lila. Some will grow from their mistakes, like Evan and Chase. And some, like Officer Daniels and Titan, will stay steady through everything. The story didn't end with dramatic consequences or perfect forgiveness. It ended in a way real life often does, with understanding, growth, and small steps towards something better. And as Maya rolled toward the school doors one bright morning, Titan at her side and Lila waving from across the courtyard, she felt something she hadn't felt in days: peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because she wasn't afraid anymore. She knew she could face whatever came next, and she knew she wasn't alone. That was the real ending. Not the conflict, not the fear, but the quiet, steady strength that came afterward.